Welcome to the 2020 Candidate Forum hosted by the McMinnville Kiwanis Club. This event is only possible because of the generosity of the Bindery event space and McMinnville Community Media. Before we begin, I would like you to join me and stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. The McMinnville Kiwanis Club has been improving the lives of children in our community for decades. Each year we invest over $60,000 and countless volunteer hours into the youth of McMinnville. Most notably, we partnered with McMinnville Parks and Recreation to bring the first barrier-free playground to Yamhill County. This is just one of many examples that have made McMinnville a better place for kids. You can find more information on our Facebook page as well as our website, and we are always looking for more members. Today we are happy to continue a long-standing tradition of holding local candidate forums that focus on local issues and policy. Today's forum features candidates for City Council in Ward 2, Kelly Menke and Brittany Ruiz. Thank you both for joining us here today. Each candidate will begin with an opening statement limited to 3 minutes. Our moderator questions come from our committee and will focus on applicable policy and relevant issues facing the city of McMinnville. Each candidate will first have 2 minutes to answer the question, followed by a 1-minute response if they wish. Candidates will rotate answering first. If you are viewing virtually and wish to submit a question, you can send it via Facebook Instant Messenger to the McMinnville Kiwanis Foundation Facebook page. McMinnville Community Media will be recording the event and airing it on their cable channels as well as their YouTube channel. We will post links as soon as they are available. We will begin with opening statements. Candidates, you will stand at your microphone when it is your turn to speak. Please also keep an eye on our timekeeper to my right to ensure that you complete your statement before your time expires. Our timekeeper will alert you when you have 60 seconds remaining and then count down from there. Your time will start when you begin speaking. Make sure we're standing close to the microphones too. All right, so we're going to get started with opening statements. Kelly, you will begin with your opening statement. You have 3 minutes.
Well, good morning, everyone, and thank you, Kiwanis, so much for hosting this event. It's very nice. I'm Kelly Menke. I've lived here in McMinnville for 40 years. I was a certified public accountant with a public accounting practice for 27 of those years. And I've been active in various civic involvement since, I would say, 1989. I'm a listener. I believe in listening and listening with intensity to what people are telling me. As a CPA, as a member of a board member for a nonprofit committee, or as a member of the McMinnville City Council, I listen with discernment. I know that it is very important to listen to what people are telling me and to do the best that I can with what they are telling me. I love the city of McMinnville. I love its livability. My husband and I chose to come here after he got out of the Marine Corps active duty. And so we moved to McMinnville. This was his family home. And then he probably went back into the Marine Corps Reserve. And I started raising a family. And a few years later, in the meantime, I also was going to school, getting my post-baccalaureate in accounting, and finally finishing with my Master's of Taxation and getting my Certified Public Accounting certification. I started a business fairly soon after that, and raising two small girls and working full-time is always exciting and keeps you very busy. But I did find time to get involved in the community. In 1989, I did my first community big project, which was sharing the Turkey Rama barbecue, and I did that for 2 years. I've gone on to be a treasurer in various organizations. I sat on Habitat for Humanity, the Library Foundation, the Soup Kitchen, and I currently am a transitional treasurer for White Cap. I love the city of McMinnville, and I want to continue to serve her. I've been a city councilor for 16 years. I appreciate all that is going on in the city. There's a lot of tough choices that we've had to make, especially in the last 4 years. And I know that there will be more to make as we go forward. I feel like I'm kind of uniquely positioned to continue to follow in this direction. My key important things are affordable housing, public safety, and jobs for the community because of COVID. Thank you.
Thank you, Kelly. Brittany, you will now have 3 minutes.
Hello, my name is Brittany Ruiz, and I first want to thank the Kiwanis Club. I think we share a lot of passion projects with regard to supporting our children, specifically with schools and our parks. I have been a McMinnville resident for less than 6 years, so almost 6 years. I moved here because I wanted to find a better way of life, and I specifically fell in love with McMinnville. I have basically immersed myself in this community since we got here. Our family frequents almost every single business in town. We shop local as much as we can. And I would say the biggest thing that got me involved in even deciding to run actually involved a family who was separated from, the mother was separated from her newborn at birth, and I stepped in after the story was shared here in McMinnville, and I reunited that mother and her newborn baby. It had such an impact on me and my family that I started to speak up about it. Prior to that, I wanted nothing to do with politics, and I wanted to do nothing to do with even government agencies. I just let them do their job, I do mine. And that led me to meeting with Representative Suzanne Bonamici, Senator Jeff Merkley, going to town halls for Ron Wyden, and then I eventually made my way to the Capitol, and that's where, the Capitol, Salem, and that's where I learned a lot, and I've been doing that every year since. And what has brought me to run for city council is mainly just the same thing that happened 5 years ago, which is an injustice happened. And there are a lot of people in the community who feel they're not being represented. Their voices are not being heard. Businesses don't feel represented. And there are concerns in the community, specifically infrastructure-wise, that people feel are not being addressed. So here I am again, addressing an urgent need, I believe, to represent those voices, and I am here, and that's all I have to say.
Thank you, Brittany. So our moderator questions, as a reminder, you will have 2 minutes each to answer the questions with an additional 1-minute response. I'm also happy to repeat any questions at any time. Kelly, you will answer this question first. If elected, what would your top 3 goals be for your 4-year term?
Well, as I said at the end of my introduction, my top 3 goals are affordable housing. I think that's critical in McMinnville. Currently, we have no land in McMinnville. We are at the end of our urban growth boundary expansion. A lot here in McMinnville costs between $150,000 to $165,000. We need to have this urban growth boundary expansion. It's the only way that we can move forward to provide livable, reasonably priced workforce housing. My second one is public safety. I feel very strongly that we have an excellent police department. They're doing all that they can to make the people in McMinnville safe, but I think there are other things that we can continue to do. As part of that, we've formed a DEI committee, or will form it. We voted on it last night. We are doing a large amount of DEI training, and we plan to have a DEI, or diversity, inclusion, and equity committee that people will be able to voice their concerns to. And this will be a committee of people of color and other persuasions. Finally, my biggest concern is jobs for people. I'm on the Economic Vitality Committee, and we just handed out about $57,000 in grants to small businesses in town. Sadly, we had $200,000 to give away, and now it's going to go to the Willamette workforce, something in around 4, at least the portion that was given from Business Oregon. McMinnville will keep its approximately $74,000, and they will be able to perhaps provide some more, but that is the focus, is jobs. We really need them for people and ways to help them get back.
Thank you, Kelly. Brittany, same question to you. You'll have 2 minutes.
All right, so I have, is it okay if I do 4? I have more than 3. But I would say the first one is priority-based budgeting. There are concerns right now where the city buildings are in disrepair. Some of them are beyond, some of them 25 years behind code. We have a fire department that needs an extra engine. It's understaffed. The building is 10 years also behind code. And we need to have a substation that the city owns and is actually built to handle the load that we were going to actually be having to confront on Baker Creek. The other issue is having, the city facilities are well maintained, they're safe, there's not drug deals happening at the parks while our kids are playing, and that there's needles are not on the grounds while people are participating in our public facilities. I have seen that firsthand, and I want to make sure that our public facilities are not only cleaned, upgraded, and maintained. That should be utmost a priority for our city. The other thing is making sure that we have full transparency on where funding is going and where our budgeting is going. We should not have somebody who is on the audit committee that also approves the budget. That's like the fox guarding the hen house. So it's very important that the citizens know exactly where our money is going. If there's any new taxes and fees, they're told exactly what it's going to be used for and what's its intended purpose. And if asked, we have the evidence for that. And those are my major top priorities.
Thank you, Brittany. Kelly, you have 1 minute to respond if you wish.
Obviously, all the things that Brittany speaks of cost money. And McMinnville's been very fortunate. We have had in the past very large amounts of reserves, up to 40%. It served us well during the 2003 recession, and it helped carry us through this COVID disaster. We're very focused, and we've just developed a new fund policy. I feel very good about it. It's based on GFOA guidelines and also recommendations from our bond people. I think people really need to be aware that, even though we are doing the best we can, our expenses frequently are higher than our income that comes in. You can't do 3% a year with property taxes and then be able to handle double-digit inflation with PERS. So you have to keep in mind that there are trade-offs here. We're looking forward as fast as we can. Thank you.
Brittany, you'll have 1 minute to respond if you wish.
Perfect. I did want to just make a big point, which is that businesses that are currently here have felt it's been very difficult working on upgrading their buildings or getting permits or getting incentives to bring businesses here. We have a scarcity of daycare centers. We do not have a place for our teens to go and safely play. So if it's not safe at home, they have a place they can go that is safe, and that our partners together can work and make sure that our teens are being well supported. And I think that there's a lot of things that we can do and partner in our community to help put priorities in place to actually protect our underprivileged and our children.
Thank you. So the next question will go to you first, Brittany. McMinnville schools are recognized at the state and national level for their excellence. While the two entities, McMinnville School District and the City of McMinnville, are separate, what value do you place in the importance of the relationship between the city and the school district? You will have 2 minutes.
Awesome. I believe that the schools, especially McMinnville School District, is a lifeline of our community. It's incredibly important that they're well supported. And I have friends that are both teachers and also work at the district, and I believe that relationship is incredibly important. Where I feel we can really work together and even bring Kiwanis in as a partner with the McMinnville School District is actually representing and fixing the underrepresentation, I would say, with disabled and low-income families. We're talking about transportation to our Parks and Recs programs. We're talking about making sure that our parks are fully updated to accommodate special needs children, and that includes McMinnville School Parks. And just making sure that we have a really robust relationship with the city and the district in terms of also being a good representative to the community and being transparent as possible and shining a light to make sure that that relationship, no matter what, is very strong, because we need to have that strong relationship to have robust supports for our children. That's it.
Thank you, Brittany. Same question to you, Kelly. You have 2 minutes.
Well, obviously, partnerships are one of the most important things the city does, is create partnerships with other entities. Like we depend on the county for health and human services. And we certainly depend on the school district to work with us for the betterment of children. There are many people, you know, myself included, when my kids were in school here, that our life revolved around school, and so it's extremely important to have that connection. The city has worked diligently to maintain good rapport with the school district and to form this partnership to do better things with it. One of the examples is Kids on the Block. It's been a long-standing organizational commitment to provide after-school activities for children, and we feel it's very important. And there have been differences over the year with how the school, you know, sometimes they have grants, sometimes they don't, sometimes we have more money, sometimes we don't, but we do work on it. Thank you.
Thank you, Kelly. Brittany, do you have a response or anything to add? Okay. All right. We will go ahead and move to the next question. Kelly, you will answer this question first. There are many demands on a fixed and, There are many demands on fixed and limited city resources. As councilor, will you advocate for any changes in city priorities in spending the city's money? If any, where should the changes be? What do you determine to be the city's core services, and how will you ensure that those continue?
You know, core services is an interesting conversation. When we hired Jeff Towery, one of the things that he wanted to do immediately was focus on core services. And for myself, I wanted to focus on a strategic plan. And coming from the prior regime, I said, you know, I really think this is more important than anything else. And Mr. Towery listened to me and said, okay, but we're going to do it my way, which he did. And it was excellent. Over 100 people participated in our strategic plan that ran between 2018 and 2019. We drew from all parts of the community, business people, Latinx community, homemakers, anybody, and also staff was involved. The councilors actually weren't really involved. We were fairly offhands on this, but they came to us with their decisions and their priorities, and we looked at them and said, these are good. This is what we want to do. Does that mean my time's up? I'm sorry. Oh, 60 minutes, okay. You are saying. At any rate, because of this, the strategic plan, we have it now going, and we're using it as a part of what we plan for the future. I think core services is one of the most interesting questions, and one we're really going to focus on for the next 5 years. It's important for us to get that down and to go forward and appropriately. I personally listen to what the city says. The city staff, I think, are personally excellent people. They know a lot about what they're doing and are probably some of the best in the state. So I rely on what they tell me, although I do look for other sources and I pay attention to other ideas. But core services are important. From my own personal standpoint, I believe that probably fire and roads and police are very important. Thank you.
Thank you, Kelly. Brittany, 2 minutes.
Can you give me the question again?
Of course I can. There are many demands on fixed and limited city resources. As councilor, will you advocate for any changes in city priorities in spending the city's money? If any, where should the changes be? What do you determine to be the city's core services? How will you ensure that those continue?
Okay, very good question. I think ultimately the core services of the government are safety and infrastructure. And if we look at the safety currently going on, I know of many businesses here in town that have been burglarized numerous times. And also we have drug deals going on in our city parks. Our city buildings and roads are way behind in repairs and upgrades. And the fact that we do not have the support and services to cater to disabled families shows that we're falling way behind where we should be to support our community. So I would say priority-based budgeting is very important to make sure that things that are of utmost importance that drive those services, drive that safety, whether it's fire, whether it's police, whether it's our buildings, our community center, our aquatic center, they should all be up to code and completely operational, and people of all income levels should be able to afford that. That's another thing that I'd like to address, is to make sure that we have transportation to our lower income families so that they can get to these services and that the programs are affordable for them. And that's another thing I want to take a look at and work with partnerships and with groups and with our community, because I believe that's best done, is working with our community to get that done. And that's my goal, is to drive those forward by making sure that the core safety and infrastructure of the city is a priority, and that's my focus.
Thank you, Brittany. Kelly, would you like to respond or add any additional comments? You'll have 1 minute.
I think the only thing I would like to add is my opponent is particularly interested in infrastructure, and I agree. We do need infrastructure. We've already done a serious capital improvement looking at what our buildings need, and it's obvious that we're going to need to do some additional buildings. Although she wants to lead the charge, we're already leading the charge with the committee, MACPAC. They are an excellent committee. I sat in on my first meeting with them the other night, and I was extremely impressed with their thoughtfulness and what they felt were the important things about this particular process. So I would highly commend the MACPAC committee composed of citizens and what they're thinking about and want to do in this particular situation.
Thank you, Kelly. Brittany, you have 1 minute to respond or to add additional comments.
Awesome. I have actually been to numerous MACPAC meetings. I'm a big champion of that, and I think I love everything that's going on with that program. My daughter is actually a member of the McMinnville Swim Club, so I have a personal vested interest on the outcome of that meeting, and I'm very excited about what's happening going forward. I will say, though, in light of infrastructure issues, we do not have a department within McMinnville to even handle and keep our buildings upgraded. And that's something that's a huge disservice, and that should have already been covered long time ago. Now we're facing an issue where we will have to possibly demolish versus bring up to code our buildings because of how bad they have been allowed to go into disrepair. And I really want to make sure that we focus on our infrastructure and putting a team there that actually keeps our buildings maintained, whether new or old.
Great. Thank you, Brittany. All right. So our next question, Brittany will answer first. With the city's recent diversity, equity, and inclusion efforts to keep matters of race and inclusion at the forefront of decision-making, how do you plan to address and support these efforts?
I like that question. I think first and foremost is that everyone should be treated equally and with respect. It doesn't matter what their race, their gender, their religion, their political leanings. No matter what, they should be treated equally, and that's how I plan to represent the citizens in my ward, and it will be fairly. And that includes any policies that we have going in. I have consistently stood up for minority families, people who are not being properly represented, and I've stood up to be their voice, whether it's at the school district, whether it's at the Capitol, whether it's with a family who was separated. All of these families carry one thing where they are considered a minority. They're either African American, or they're Hispanics, or they're low income, and they do not have the voice. So I plan to continue to be that voice for the people who cannot speak up because that is something I have a lot of experience with. I am a mother of 3 biracial children. I'm married to a Hispanic, and I believe it's incredibly important that those communities are properly represented.
Thank you, Brittany. Kelly, you will have 2 minutes.
Could you repeat the question?
Absolutely. With the city's recent diversity, equity, and inclusion efforts to keep matters of race and inclusion at the forefront of decision-making, how do you plan to address and support these efforts?
Well, as a member of the City Council, I strongly advocate for the fact that we need to look at ourselves and educate ourselves. And so the most important way that we are starting out is to educate ourselves. We have voted, and I think it's sometime at the end of this month, we're going to be having diversity, equity, and inclusion training. In addition to that, all the staff will also have this type of training, and I believe the safety services will receive even additional training over that, although they do already receive this training fairly frequently. The other thing that I think is important is that we are focused on forming a committee that we feel will be able to advise the City Council in these areas. We do have an interesting City Council. We have one Latino member, and we also have a woman who is a lesbian. And so we do get different points of view from both of these, and I think they will be involved actually in helping pick some of the members of this committee. Besides that, I think just educating yourself in these particular issues. I've worked with homeless people at the soup kitchen. I've worked with many people of different races. I personally, my background is I am married to a man, and my mother-in-law was Japanese. So I too have sort of a racial interconnection. And I do understand, at least from her point of view, a number of the issues that occurred in her life and how difficult it is sometimes. I strongly believe in this particular program. I think it's important, and I think we will follow through with it. There's a lot of enthusiasm for it at the City Council level. And there is a commitment from the staff to do this. One other thing I'll just bring up briefly. Okay.
Brittany, would you like to respond or add any additional comments?
No, I think she said what she says great.
Okay. Kelly, did you have anything to add quickly, or you?
Can I add something?
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, there was one other thing I wanted to add. Just that it's escaping me at the moment. No, I just really feel that this is important, and I think people need to talk with each other. And I think those of us that, obviously are not of color, need to look at being anti-racist and getting that training. I feel like I am an anti-racist in training, and I'm doing the very best I can to understand. Thank you.
Thank you. So the next question will go to Kelly first. The role of a city councilor requires effective and productive communication. What are your expectations of yourself and your fellow councilors as it pertains to group dynamics, discussion, and work sessions? Well, I relish conversation with the City Council. I think we have some very intelligent people working with us. One of our focuses early on was to bring in perhaps some younger people, because basically everybody besides Scott and myself got tired of being on City Council, and they were all quite, our age or older. So we focused on bringing in younger members, and they all represent, I think we've got at least 3 of them that are born in the city of McMinnville, and they're very strong advocates for the city of McMinnville. I think civility is probably the most important thing in a city council. It is extremely important for us to be able to share our ideas, and even if we don't agree, to do it in a civil way and to appreciate the differences between us and try to come to some kind of workable solution with whatever we're deliberating on. I
remember especially both Ed Gormley and Kent Taylor, really instilling in all of us when we had our first goal setting session together, the importance of civility in our conversations and how we dealt with each other. And through the years, I've worked with many counselors, some of whom I frankly disagreed on almost everything, and yet I've managed to maintain a civil relationship. And I hope very much going forward that I can continue to do that. I'll do my best to work with everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, Kelly. Brittany, same question to you.
Okay, so can you ask me what question one more time? Just
Yeah,
wanna make
of
sure I'm
course.
clear.
Yep. The role of a city councilor requires effective and productive communication. What are your expectations of yourself and your fellow councilors as it pertains to group dynamics, discussion, and work sessions?
Good question. Okay, so first and foremost, I'm elected to represent the citizens in my ward. So ultimately, whatever comes before me, I'm going to want to make sure that I have surveyed the residents in my ward on those decisions and make sure that whatever I decide or vote on is a collective agreement coming from those from those citizens. And as a result of that, making sure I'm bringing their voice to the table, because at some times that's not always manageable, or they can't attend a city council meeting, or we're late to getting a public comment in. The other thing is very important on the issue of transparency. There have been times where an ordinance was passed first, second, and a vote, and it was not even listed on the agenda that was going to happen. That's a very serious, in my book, miscommunication to the public, and especially if it impacts that individual. I think that's very important. Using all media channels to let citizens know that there's going to be a public meeting, I think that's very important. I don't know that the city uses social media very often to notify people about taxes, fees, or ordinances that could impact them, that could impact businesses. And a lot of times it's too late, and especially at the last meeting I had when the fee was raised, I think there was only 3 citizens on that call, and that's disheartening. My goal is going to be to make sure that citizens are being represented and they're at the table at important discussions, and that's what I believe is going to be my PowerPoint when I get on the council, is making sure that those are actually followed and that citizens' voices are represented.
Kelly, you have a chance to respond.
Well, I do applaud my opponent in her desire to get the message out in various ways. We do have a website. We do have a procedure that we have followed for many years. And, if things are posted in the News Register, and then they are also posted on our website. And if it includes a certain department, usually they will post it on their Facebook or their section of the website. I do believe that we do our very best to inform people, but I think she is right. I think that we could do better. So my focus going forward, even as she has mentioned, is to improve the way we get information out. I have been a strong advocate for public relations, more information to get out to the people, and positive information about what the city is doing. We're not trying to keep anything hidden. We just think people need to know what's going on.
Brittany, you have a minute to respond.
I think the only thing I'd like to add is just that, for me, there's this lack of ease in being involved in the city. And I think one of the things that came up a lot when I was meeting with people is that they don't even know who their elected officials are. And I think another way we can do to improve that and to improve that interaction is make it easier for people to sign up for notifications from the city. It takes 5 prompts for me to get signed up with the email system to get notified of a meeting happening. It should be a lot easier than that. It shouldn't take me 6 prompts to find out the information for the next meeting. These are just things that I think citizen-wise would make things a lot easier and just much more approachable, and then making sure that we're doing meet and greets in the community, that we're interacting with our citizens at events, at functions, at however which way people should know who the representative is. And I hope to bring more of that to the table by doing a lot more meet and greets and listening to the citizens.
Great, thank you. So the next question, I think, ties in a little bit to the topic that we are on. And this question will go to Brittany first. There have been concerns about a lack of transparency regarding the current council. Identify, if any, areas that you as a councilor will work to decrease the feeling of a lack of transparency. How do you plan to involve residents in the decision-making process in our town? Additionally, how do you plan to reach residents that may not fall inside of your normal circle?
Well, I did address a lot of that in my last, but I do want to expand upon that. There are things that the city can do. In fact, I might even use the remaining of my campaign funds. If I hear about a new tax, a fee, an ordinance, or whatever, I'm going to use my ability and my channels to get the community involved in those discussions. We should be doing that already. The community should already be aware that there's a 3% fee or a 5% franchise fee or a 10% transient tax on our businesses. This is stuff that the whole community should know about and be involved in those discussions. And I think ultimately, at the end of the day, I just feel like, and the reason why I'm even running is mainly because of the fact that I received my bill, my water and light bill, bumped up $50 a month, and I had no clue. And that's actually what got me going, what am I missing? How did I not know about this? How come? I thought I was in connection with a lot of people in the community to know that was happening, and unfortunately I didn't. So those communication channels, I feel like, need to become robust, and we need to restore trust with our businesses and citizens that if they bring something up to the council, that it's going to get addressed, because that's how I believe we'll see more people showing up, because they believe their voices do matter, and I hope to fix that in terms of transparency.
Thank you, Brittany. Kelly?
One of the things that we did when we went into the new building, the Civic Center, which was a number of years ago, was we invited MCM Channel 11 to come and film us. And that was a new experience. No one had ever done that before, at least for the McMinnville City Council. And I think it's an important service because people that don't have access to the City Council meetings, it's difficult for them to get there and whatever else. They do have the opportunity to watch the meetings on TV. They also have the opportunity at this point in time with COVID to respond and actually ask questions, to do citizen announcements or things like that they want to do during the meetings. So there's a lot more connectivity, which oddly enough has come out of this COVID situation. Thank you. I feel like we are transparent in the way we operate. We have operated the same way for the 16 years that I have been a councilor. I know that perhaps newer people have a little bit of trouble with this, but people that have lived here know that if they want to know something about the city council meeting, it's usually an article in the Friday edition that will tell you what we're going to be talking about on Tuesday. So I don't feel like that this is a lack of transparency. These are usually planned out well in advance, and there are opportunities to talk to various entities that are going to be charging those fees. They usually don't happen, or they're not finalized in one night. If it's an ordinance, it's something that's going to change. I believe Water and Light has held a meeting discussing fees with people. And Recology and some of those where we are seeing fee increases. Thank you.
Brittany, do you have anything to add or respond?
I think the only thing I'd add to that is we have 34,000 residents and only 10% are in circulation in the news register. That means only 10% are finding out about it. We have to do better. We need to do better. That's to me, that's just, to rely on the news register on your website as the only form of communication on a thing that concerns all residents. I don't think that's fair.
Thank you, Brittany. Kelly, do you have anything to add?
Just basically what I said. Even though it is published in the news register, there are other ways of getting it. It's published, I think it comes out on every Thursday before every Tuesday meeting with the schedule and what we will be talking about. And we rarely change the schedule, so it's important to take a look at the website. If everybody has access to that, they can look it over and see what they want to attend, or, via internet or however else.
Thank you, Kelly. All right, we have a question from the Facebook live stream. I hope this sentence makes sense because I restructured it on the fly. There has been a lot of discussion surrounding out-of-county campaign donations. What do you think is the role of PAC money in local non-partisan elections? So this one, Kelly, Kelly, you will be the first to answer this question.
Could you read that one more time?
Yes, I hope it made sense. There has been a lot of discussion surrounding out-of-county campaign donations. What do you think the role is of PAC money in local nonpartisan elections?
It's a difficult one. It's been a very interesting campaign involving donations this year. I've never seen the spending that is occurring this year. So my response is, as I look at various situations, I think it is important in some cases to report this and have this information out. I think in particular with the amendment to the care centers and things like that, when we were talking about it, I felt it was important for people to understand how much money was being spent out of the city. Here, I think I've received a small amount of money from outside the city, but not anything significant. I think it is concerning when large amounts of money are coming from other areas, because this is our city and we should be the ones influencing it, not other people and other business interests. And that's pretty much all I've got to say about it. I just don't think it's correct.
Thank you, Kelly. Brittany, you will have 2 minutes.
Okay, I'm very honored to be surrounded by many friends and family in Oregon. I would say 98% of my donations are actually from friends and family. There was one political action, or two actually, the McMinnville Professional Firefighters and Yamhill First. Those guys are both here in McMinnville, and those two have donated to my campaign. Outside of that, they're friends and family in Oregon. One of my friends who happened to just leave Oregon and move to Idaho gave me $500, but she was Oregon resident up until she left and then donated to my campaign. I'm very fortunate that I have a huge amount of supporters here in McMinnville and across Oregon that are supporting my campaign, and I do believe in transparency. I will say that I still, and I can be corrected by Kelly, but I still have not seen her expenditures up on Orastar, and I have not seen all of her contributions listed. So I have literally listed every single expense. I report it to my CPA same day, if not the next day. It's incredibly important that that is on record immediately, and I also have been supporting local businesses for a lot of my print work and stuff like that. So not only that have I been getting money locally, I've been supporting locally.
Thank you, Brittany. Kelly, would you like to respond?
I too have been reporting my donations as I receive them. I think that's important. I think people should know what's going on with your campaign. I don't think there's anything else you can do. You need to report and let people know. And the majority of my campaign donations have all come from citizens here in McMinnville. I can only think of one that would have come from outside. Thank you. And it was a fairly small one.
Thank you, Kelly. Anything additional, Brittany?
I'm trying to think. I think I'm speechless.
All right. So we'll move into our final question before closing statements. Get back over here. All right, and this one will go first to Brittany. COVID-19 is a watershed moment on a global level. As Councilor, what concerns you about the immediate future of the city of McMinnville? How will you work to ensure a safe and equitable recovery for every person in McMinnville?
I really appreciate asking that question because that's something that continually plagues me because of the fact that we have seen a record number of fee increases this year alone on our businesses and our citizens. And I think we need to pause and we need to take a deep breath and we need to know what is that outcome going to be. What is the economic outlook going to be and the outcome for citizens here, especially businesses? We see businesses closing. We have citizens that still are without a job. We need to be very sensitive to those increases and the potential to possibly put that person out of their house because they cannot finance or they cannot pay for it because fees keep going up or costs keep going up. Another thing that we need to look at is, and I believe this is incredibly important given the COVID issue, is making sure that people have access to, you know, obviously the services. I think our community service, including Yamhill County Health and Human Services and our local, we have one of the most robust health communities, I think, in any county. I know that because I work with, I've gone to the meetings and stuff like that for the public health meetings, but ultimately I believe that we also need to sit down and look at how can we be a better service to our businesses and our citizens, both whether it's starting a business here, keeping the businesses here, offering incentives to builders to build affordable housing. Let's scale back and figure out how we can make it easier for citizens and businesses to operate, especially given COVID-19.
Thank you, Brittany. Same question to you, Kelly.
Well, obviously the repercussions of COVID-19 will be following us for a while. I think I'm a member of the Pacific McMinnville DMO, and it's been one of the saddest meetings to attend on a monthly basis. I mean, the first week, I think we had 2 companies that laid off almost all of their employees. It was going to be pretty bad from the get-go. And then the Pacific McMinnville's income, which comes primarily from tourism, dropped dramatically. So they are recovering as best they can. They're doing an excellent job of keeping the community and in people's thoughts as we go through this time. Like I say, jobs are important. Interfacing with our various organizations like MEDP, SEDCOR, the state, the regional assistance that we receive from the state, and also the Economic Vitality Committee, of which I co-chair. You know, we find ways of using money. Another way that can help is through MURAC, which is a very lively organization and spends thousands of dollars every year. It's our urban renewal agency, and with the incremental increase in tax every year, we have thousands of dollars to give away, and we give them away to new and continuing business for facade improvements, for any number of different supports, like for the Atticus Hotel, which brings in tremendous amount of tax revenue in the past. It provides us, we were able to provide them with some significant help when they first started. So it's important to keep in mind that there are various agencies through the city that we can do some work with, and we're also working on business loans through MISO. Thank you.
Thank you, Kelly. Do you have any response, Brittany? Okay, you have 1 minute.
Okay, so I think one of the things that's come up through my advocacy work as a parents advocate is that we're seeing a bigger number and increase in failure to cope from parents, especially with disabled children. With schools no longer doing in-person, that burden has now fallen completely on the parent, and they have no place to turn to. We are limited in resources here in town on how to make sure that those parents are getting the support and backbone that they need to continue to do the best they can for that child. And I think that's another thing that we need to start looking at, is making sure that we as a community have let every citizen know all of the resources that are available to them, whether it's county or local, whether it's Lutheran Family Services, Family Relief, Domestic Violence, Henderson House. If there's a grant that we can give for daycare centers, we really need to figure out what we're going to do. Otherwise, we're going to be overwhelming the foster care system very shortly with parents that cannot help their child.
Thank you, Brittany.
I do want to make a point here because Brittany has all sorts of things that we can spend our money on, but she isn't really very forthcoming on how the money's going to actually occur. The city of McMinnville's money sources are fairly static, and they don't go up a great deal or down a great deal. And right now, with the new fund balance requirements that we've just imposed, it's going to be even more difficult. So we do have to look for partnerships. Health and Human Resources, partnerships with the county mental health teams that come in and help the police department tremendously. All of these work together to provide services that she is saying we can access, but we can only access them with money and with partnerships. So I don't know that she really knows the process of how that's going to actually happen. It's important. We need to work with the partnerships. We need to do everything we can to improve things for our community. But the city has its limits.
Thank you, Kelly. All right, we will now be moving into our closing statements. Again, you will each have 3 minutes, and we will begin closing statements with Brittany.
I think my closing statement is really just to let the citizens know that I am your voice. I will represent you no matter what. I believe in protecting the underdog, the people without a voice, and making sure that businesses who feel bullied or retaliated against have a voice on the committee, whether it's the high turnover rate that we have at our fire department and fixing that, whether it's our infrastructure and making sure that we have the best and most accessible parks and services for our citizens. I believe that it's incredibly important that we are 150% transparent. No decisions about votes on on ordinances late at night or off record. You hear about some of those decisions, you can already tell that the council's already decided, and that is not on record. I believe that's very important to be transparent. I believe we really need to take a pause when it comes to new taxes, bonds, or levies. I think we need to make sure that we have identified our current budget, exactly where that money's going. Is it justified, and has it been accounted for? And I think ultimately we need to look at everything with a brand new, fresh set of eyes to make sure that what we are doing is correct given our current circumstances. And I think based on my communication with members of the community, they want new, fresh, energetic voice on the council, and also making sure that the citizens are represented. And I absolutely believe I can do that.
Thank you, Brittany. Kelly, you will have 3 minutes for your closing statement.
Well, first I want to thank the Kiwanis again for this opportunity. It's been a really great day. I look at what I think are my priorities for going forward, and my priorities are affordable housing. I think it's incredibly important. When lots cost somewhere between $150,000 and $165,000 because we frankly have no more land, because the last 4 subdivisions are going in right now, and the only thing that will be left soon is infill. The state determines that we should each have a 20-year land supply. Each city should have a 20-year land supply. But in McMinnville's case, it's been 30 years since we passed an urban growth boundary expansion. So I feel very strongly that having an urban growth boundary expansion is going to be what the answer is for affordable housing and for subsidized housing, for that matter, for the city of McMinnville. In 5 years I've sat on the Affordable Housing Task Force. We have talked to many people, and land use is probably one of the biggest issues that we have, because we can get people to come in and build inexpensive homes. There's lots of contractors out there that could easily do that, but we can't provide the land. I'm also a strong advocate for public safety, and public safety in particular with equity involved. It's extremely important for us to focus on the diversity, equity, and inclusion focus for our public safety, and also like for rental situations. anything where people feel like they're being marginalized, it's important to focus and help that situation out. And finally, we need jobs, pure and simple. We need to be looking at our partners, SEDCOR, MEDP, MIP, who has industrial properties, anything that will help us, and especially the workforce housing people at the state, get what we need to go forward with jobs. And that means providing matching funds, doing whatever we can to help businesses, new and ones that have been continuing for a long time. Those are my 3 big items. I love McMinnville. I've loved serving her for many years. I want the best for her and her citizens. It's extremely important for McMinnville's economic vitality and livability. Thank you.
Thank you both very much for being here today. I know you're in the final weeks of campaigning, so we appreciate taking the time to have a productive conversation with us. As we previously stated, the recorded version of this forum will be available by McMinnville Community Media on their cable channels as well as YouTube. We will be posting links to our Facebook page and club website as soon as they are available. Our club website is www.McMinnvilleKiwanis.org. Thank you all very much for joining us virtually. Thank you again to the Bindery Event Space and McMinnville Community Media for being here. And have a great day, McMinnville.
Thank you.